Welcome back, MTN Giants podcast, reacting to a 8th straight loss for the Giants. It didn't really, I looked back at the schedule, right? I'm trying to think, when's the last time they won a game? And it was the Thursday nighter against the Eagles, which, I kid you not, really feels like a different season. Because we had a different head coach, different defensive coordinator. Cam Scatterbo was a big part of that game, obviously. He's not with us now. I don't want to make it sound like he's dead. No, he's just injured. But it really does feel so long ago. So once again, 8 straight losses. I guess the good news is the Giants do hold the first overall pick for now. I still don't think they'll end that way because they have some easy games coming up. One of those being at the Las Vegas Raiders, which that team is horrific. They got shut out today. Kenny Pickett starting. They're just a really bad football team. So I think the Giants will beat them, so I'm not getting my hopes up. But in the event that the Giants can get the first overall pick, it's intriguing that they can hopefully trade back and get a team's first round pick for next year, maybe even the year after. We'll see how much that pick is coveted. But at the same time, don't want to get my hopes up. So we saw some good stuff from Jackson Dart, maybe some rookie mistakes we were not used to seeing. We saw some Darius Slayton drops. We saw some special teams mishaps, which coming into it, we kind of knew that might be an issue because Jamie Gillen was out. I mean, the Giants, they're the guys that they were starting the season with. Graham Gano, Jamie Gillen, both guys, kickers, punters, both of them are out. So now the punter and the holder today was Cameron Johnston, the guy that looks like Bill Burr, been around with, I think, the Bills, the Eagles, and of course, Younghoe Koo was still kicking, and he missed an extra point, I believe, and a field goal in this game. He missed them both to the left, and I know the weather wasn't ideal, but Younghoe Koo has not been anything too great for the Giants, unfortunately. He's probably not going to earn himself a spot on the roster next year. He'd have a hard time doing that. And I will say, this team looked like they were going to lay down and die pretty early. It was 22-7 at halftime. I'm thinking man, this team really quit because I'm sure most of us saw the Mike Kafka speech on Hard Knocks. I'm pretty sure there's a Hard Knocks going on in season for NFC East teams, which I personally have no interest in watching, so I've only seen the popular clips of it. One of them was Theo Johnson and Jackson Dart not knowing which way the Atlantic Ocean was or something, or which way New York was. I forget what it was, but one of those clips. And the one that was making the rounds on Twitter this week was Mike Kafka giving a speech, and it was during one of the film sessions. They had all the players sitting in the theater seating in rows, and Kafka's dropping F-bomb after F-bomb, trying to motivate people, and he's like, if you don't want to be here, get the fuck out. And you can just tell his message was not getting across to the players. I mean, these guys know the situation. They came in 2-11, first team eliminated from the playoffs. I mean, everybody knows that this final month here is not going to be fun. And yeah, Mike Kafka's in a tough spot. He was able to coach the final 7 games of this year, but when he took over, they were 2-8, and the season was over once again. So it's tough to take over a team where the season's over. There's a lot of veterans on this team, guys that are well paid that maybe don't have the most motivation to play. So I don't want to be too hard on Kafka, but that whole speech was very cringy. Just, I don't know, it felt so inauthentic, I guess you can say. It just didn't feel like it was actually him. Anyway, as I was saying, I really thought they were going to lay down and die at halftime, but the Giants came out early third quarter on their first drive, had the touchdown pass to Tyrone Tracy. He looked great, by the way. Love what I saw from him today. And they were able to make it an 8-point game and at least have a chance to go down and tie the game at the end. Jackson Dart did not have the best drive on the final drive, couple of inaccurate throws and one underthrow. Antonio Hamilton, by the way, I was like, is that the same Antonio Hamilton that was a Giant during the late stage of Eli's career Giants? That same guy? He was mostly a special teamer. I know he went to Arizona. I thought he was out of the NFL. And then we see Antonio Hamilton must have made 3 or 4 plays at cornerback in this game, so shout out to him. But I'm looking now, yeah, he was a Giant in 2018, 2019. I was like, I know this name, so it's kind of crazy seeing him making plays on the defensive side of the ball. And as we know, at this point, the Giants are running out of, I guess, places to point fingers. They're running out of coaches to fire, players to move off of, right? At first, it's it's Daniel Jones' fault. And I was one of those people myself. I thought getting rid of Daniel Jones would solve a lot of issues. And I guess it has to a degree because the quarterback play has been much better since he's been gone, but clearly he was not the entire issue. And then of course you talk about the coaches, you move on from Dable. Does that solve anything? Not really. You move on from Shane Bowen. I know it's only been 2 games, but has that solved anything? Not really. They fired Brian Cox over I don't think it was specifically over the seating arrangement on the plane thing, but that was a whole rumor going on. That was a pretty funny story, but you get rid of him. And apparently Abdul Carter had his best week of practice and he was watching a lot of film, which when people say Abdul Carter's watching a lot of film based on the Wesley Steinberg tweet, we're not sure what kind of film it is. Hopefully it was football related film. I'm just kidding. But yeah, he really looked his best today. Almost blocked a kick too. He was able to jump over the offensive lineman on Washington, almost had a nice kick block. But Carter definitely played his best game in what felt like a long time, maybe the entire season. But as I said, you're running out of places to point fingers, and at this point, you have to look at the roster. I mean, I don't think this is the worst roster in football. I mean, they're not good either, but I don't think this is the worst roster. I really think if you have a new coach, new identity, it can change a lot. Like we saw this happen with the Patriots, who were coached by Gerard Mayo last year, and they looked horrible. Then they bring in Vrabel, and the team all of a sudden looks a lot better. Yeah, the schedule was easy, of course, but got to give them credit. Then the Chicago Bears, same example. They keep their GM with, almost said Ryan Poles, changed the head coach from Eberflus or whoever the interim guy was, going to Ben Johnson, and they look a lot better. So sometimes it's not entirely the roster. Sometimes you just need a different head coach, a different voice. Like we literally saw it in 2022. Now, it didn't have a long shelf life. It wasn't sustainable what the Giants were doing in 2022, but it was something. It wasn't this, right? The Giants are 5-26 in their past 31 games. It's getting outrageously bad. And now since the start of the 2023 season, they are 11-37 according to Dan Duggan. And that's tied for the worst record in football over that time, which is pretty much almost 3 full seasons now. They're tied with the Tennessee Titans for the worst record in football. Tennessee, who I think has had 2 first overall picks since that time's happened, or I think they'll get it this year as well. And since Joe Shane's been the GM, which also includes 2022, the Giants are 5-17-1 against other NFC East teams. So no matter how you spin it, no matter what perspective you look at, this has been not just bad, but embarrassingly bad. And I really do hope they go in a different direction in this offseason. And at this point, like I know a few weeks ago, people were thinking Joe Shane is going to be safe and they'll just get a new head coach, which I guess could still happen. But at this point, sure, I had my concerns they would come out the bye and go 3-1 to close out the year, and that would be enough to convince ownership to keep Joe Shane, which maybe they still go 2-2 and they win the next 2 games, and that's enough to convince ownership to keep him. But at this point, things are not getting better. I think just the flaws in this roster keep showing week after week, and the more this goes on, it just feels like the more likely that Joe Shane is fired. So if we go into the offseason with the Giants being 3-14, I still think they beat the Raiders once again. I think next week against the Vikings is iffy. But if they go into this offseason 3-14, I just don't know if you're John Mara how you continue to run this back with the same exact GM. Anyway, there is a game to talk about, so we'll get to that. I don't know why I went off on such a tangent there, but I guess at this point people don't really care about the game itself. It's more about the big picture and things like that. So anyway, let's go over the game and let's get into it. All right, the game started with Abdul Carter getting a tackle for loss on Jeremy McNichols for a loss of 1. That was good to see. I mean, of course, with Kayvon still out, Abdul Carter has a chance to step up and make plays, and it hasn't been great so far. The off-field stuff in terms of being late, that's been annoying, but at least we saw him this week come out and look like the 3rd overall pick he was supposed to be. And we got the reports that this was like, once again, the week he took things most serious, and it ends up being his best game maybe of his young career. Mike Kafka challenges the spot on a Terry McLaurin catch over the middle. It looked short on TV, but then they reviewed it. Turned out he got the first down, so the Giants lose an early challenge there. There was a 3rd and 10 to Noah Brown, gained 27 yards on a crosser. Once again, Abdul Carter had pressure there. Mariota had to step up and step away from him. Javon Holland was in coverage there. Not the best Javon Holland game, by the way, so that signing doesn't look too great right now. Abdul Carter was able to force a holding call, and that made it 3rd and 20. And on the 3rd down play and long, Mariota was able to scramble enough to get in field goal range, and Jake Moody made the 46-yarder to make it 3-0 Washington. Giants offense got out to a quick start with Darius Slayton for 19 yards on a play-action dig route. That was good to see. 3rd and 6, Dart throws a one-on-one with, once again, Antonio Hamilton in coverage, and he threw it too far. Slayton kind of didn't really keep running, so that fell incomplete. Younghoe Koo from 52 yards, new holder once again, missed it wide left. So, it is what it is. The Giants' kicking situation has been a mess this year, and they have to take that serious this offseason. They have to find a way to get somebody more reliable. whether that's in free agency or through the draft. Hopefully it just cannot be Graham Gano or guys off the street or Jude McAdamy. We can't do that crap anymore. Darius Muasau almost had an interception on a ball tipped up by Deebo Samuel, who had a couple drops early in this game. Abdul Carter gets a strip sack on Mariota. The Commanders still recovered it, but it did knock them out of field goal range, so that was big. Then the Giants defense had a breakdown multiple times. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt had a 12-yard run, had a lot of yards after contact on that run, then had the 16-yard touchdown run where Dexter Lawrence and Roy Robertson-Harris got just moved off their spots with ease, it felt like. Krosky-Merritt made the right cutback, was able to run up the middle for a 16-yard touchdown to make it 10-0 Washington. Dart went to attack Antonio Hamilton again in coverage, deep left once again. This time he slightly overthrew Darius Slayton, who I really, not to throw too much shade at Slayton because he's been taking a lot of shit lately, which not too mad at it because, Darius Slayton once again had the tweet saying, like, we're not bums as wide receivers, and so far, Darius Slayton has been nothing but a bum for most of this year. But this game just made me realize, like, man, if they really get a legit wide receiver 2, Wan'Dale Robinson technically is a wide receiver 2 on this team, but not really, like, he's just more of a slot guy. But if they get like another, like a Z receiver, obviously you have Neighbors who is the X, and obviously you're going to put Wan'Dale back in the slot, so you're going to need somebody else to be an outside receiver for this team. And I would love to see somebody better than Darius Slayton because, to be honest, he leaves a lot of plays out there on the field. Like, he just dropped points today. Like, he should have had that touchdown. Even the second overthrow by Dart, I feel like a better receiver could have caught that maybe. So once again, I just really hope the Giants take a receiver early in this draft. Even if it's in the first round, I'm completely fine with it. Yeah, you took Neighbors in the first round 2 years ago, but I still think it can't hurt to have 2 elite receivers on your football team. Next drive for Washington, Mariota found tight end John Bates for 19 yards on an RPO. Very nice play. He was wide open. Cliff Kingsbury offense once again. I don't know how I feel about Cliff as a head coach for this team, and obviously he would not make a lateral move to be the offensive coordinator, but I will say, I've said this before, I think Jackson Dart is like a really good fit for Cliff Kingsbury's system, so if the Giants were to hire Kingsbury, I think it makes sense for Dart, but he might not be my favorite option, but I don't think I'd hate it either. Jeremy McNichols picked up 16 yards, the running back, on a swing pass. This might have been the worst missed tackle I've seen by the Giants in a long time. Bobby Okereke literally just had to push McNichols out of bounds and somehow whiffed on the push, right? I'm not asking you to tackle him and make a big play in the hole. Like, you literally just had to put your hands on McNichols and push him out of bounds, and somehow Bobby Okereke whiffed when doing that. And this is Jeremy McNichols, like a journeyman guy, basically, a third-string running back. We're not talking Bajan, we're not talking Jahmyr Gibbs, we're not talking like McCaffrey. Like, this is Jeremy McNichols. Like, come on, man. Drew Phillips had a good, not pass breakup, but good defense on Jalen Lane in the end zone that forced a 39-yard field goal from the Commanders. This was the play when Abdul Carter jumped over the line and almost had a really nice kick block, but unfortunately missed it. So 13-0 Washington. Giants had a 2nd and 9, 28-yard run for Jackson Dart. He was able to extend the play, and then pretty much the middle of the field opened up, and Jackson Dart ran for it. Didn't slide. It resulted in a tackle, so not my favorite play for Jackson Dart, but it is good to see. I feel like there were a couple times today where it was that long run, and there was one in the fourth quarter where he didn't really protect himself, and of course the one where he left the game and had to get evaluated for a concussion for like the 17th time this year. But of course he was fine and came back in, so there were a couple moments he didn't take the best care of himself. There was a 3rd and 10. This was surprising. So obviously Mike Kafka, very, very run heavy. I saw there was a chart from some, analytics site or something that the Giants have been like the most run heavy team in terms of like neutral game scripts and which teams run the ball the most. And so far since Kafka's taken over, the Giants have been the most run heavy team in football, which I completely believe. It's not like I saw that and was like, whoa, really? That doesn't make sense. Like, no, it made complete sense that the Giants have been very, very run heavy since Kafka took over this team. Anyway, 3rd and 10 to Tyrone Tracy, read option. He runs for a 12-yard touchdown. John Runyon and Andrew Thomas had great seal blocks on this play, and I will say Tyrone Tracy looked like he was going to be stopped short of the end zone. He got the first down, but was able to like carry a couple tacklers into the end zone. So great effort by him. There was another great tackle for loss by Abdul Carter. He got by Tyler Biotish in the A-gap with ease, got the tackle for loss there. Jermaine Illuminor got beat by Von Miller, who's still around. He had a sack to make it 3rd and 18 for the Giants. Then, of course, we had the Jalen Lane punt return for a touchdown. The Giants looked like they had a momentum. It was 13-7 at that point, and then with that one punt return, it all went away. Washington's extra point was doinked off the goalpost, so Giants catch a break there. It was 19-7. Then Jackson Dart forces it to Mikey Sanders and Jalen Hyatt was running the comeback deep. I will give Hyatt credit for this because I feel like not many people noticed this. I saw it when I was watching the game back for the second time. Jalen Hyatt was the intended receiver. He probably went down around like the Washington 20-yard line. And Sanders still returned it over midfield. So Jalen Hyatt was on the ground, had to get up and sprint all the way to the other side of the field to make the tackle on Sanders still. So I know we look at Jalen Hyatt, he's been a failure so far as a Giant, but when guys make efforts like that, especially for a 2-11 football team, I have to point that out. So I give Jalen Hyatt credit for running back and trying to make that tackle, which he did. Because if you're a competitive football team, and let's say the Giants were playing for a playoff spot, like those are the little things that coaches will very much appreciate, and me as a fan noticing, I appreciated that as well. Jake Moody made the 42-yard field goal to close out the half. So once again, 22-7 Washington at halftime. I'm thinking like this team is going to lay down and die. They have nothing to play for. Kafka's coming off the cringy speech during the week, but the Giants did the opposite. So there was a misdirection screen to Theo Johnson that picked up 25 yards. He went down at the Commanders' 29-yard line, and this was a screen pass that Jackson Dart had to put a lot of loft on. Like Jackson Dart, his touch is really amazing. So I know it's like one simple screen pass, and I'm sure a lot of quarterbacks could have made that throw, but I feel like not many would have lobbed that ball as high as he did with that confidence. So I give him credit for that. Wandale gained 11 yards on a crosser. Then Tyrone Tracy later in the drive had the out and up on Bobby Wagner for the 18-yard touchdown. Very nice catch. Like that's something you would see from a wide receiver, which I guess Tyrone Tracy at one point was a wide receiver. But at this point in Bobby Wagner's career, not good in coverage. So the Giants at least did their homework. They watched the film. They realized, hey, this is a matchup that we can exploit. And the Giants are not the only team to do it. So Bobby Wagner, Hall of Fame player, but him in coverage at this point, not very good. So that made it 22-14. Drew Phillips played great defense on a Terry McLaurin pick play where McLaurin was in the slot, ran like the wheel route, and Drew Phillips was able to pretty much have one hand on McLaurin, the other hand knocked away the ball. Obviously, you'd prefer an interception, but still, that's like the best defense you can play. 3rd and 5 pass for the Giants to Darius Slayton was dropped. I put shocker, like once again, awful drop. 4th and 1 for the Giants. Dart holds on to the ball for a very long time. Daniel Bellinger, who was blocking for most of this play, was able to release and pick up the first down. Darius Slayton then drops the touchdown over his shoulder. That would have been like a 35-yard touchdown pass. Unfortunately, it was dropped. Mike Kafka runs a draw on 3rd and long, which they only pick up like 1 or 2 yards. So that one kind of annoyed me. Once again, Kafka very run heavy. They run the draw there. They could have gotten Younghoe Koo into better field goal range. That doesn't happen, so then they have to settle for a 51-yard field goal, which we have a shaky kicking situation as it is. Then you add on the wind and the elements, and of course, once again, Younghoe Koo missed it wide left. Then Terry McLaurin has the post route on Dane Belton, where he got completely sauced by McLaurin, and Paulson Adebo missed the tackle. It was a 51-yard touchdown for Terry McLaurin. I gotta say, for Belton, I think Belton made the one play. He got the fumble, which I think Mariota just fumbled on his own, but he gets credit for it. And there might have been one other good Dane Belton play, but like this play was just awful. He might have been expecting a McLaurin corner route, and he kind of cheated to the outside. Then McLaurin took it back inside, and he was just wide open. I think a lot of people could have made that throw. So that made it 29-14 Washington. There was a 42-yard pass to Theo Johnson up the seam, contested catch. Love to see that because Theo Johnson, who is very promising, I must say, does have some issues with drops sometimes, and specifically contested catches. Jackson Dart on the broken play near the goal line dove head first. He was forced to the sidelines. Jackson Dart wasn't sure why, but it makes sense given his history why the refs would want to take him out the game and give him an extra look. The Giants had a 1st and goal from the 1 on this drive. Then it got to 4th and goal. Dart came back in, and the pass to Wan'Dale Robinson. This was great defense by Quan Martin, I think his name is, on Washington, secondary player. He came off of his guy. Like, he was supposed to go with Theo Johnson, and he just read Jackson Dart's eyes perfectly and came back and dove and almost picked off this ball. So that drive went for 0 points. Once again, the Giants had the ball 1st and goal from the 1-yard line, and they don't get any points out of it. So that was very bad. And I will say, in the Giants' defense, Jackson Dart had to leave the field for 2 of those plays, and Jameis Winston came in. I think he had like 2 pretty bad passes, so that's unfortunate. Tyler Nubin got juked out of his shoes by Marcus Mariota on a read option. Then Nubin, a couple plays later, had a tackle for loss. Abdul Carter and I think it was Dame Belton were able to force a fumble on Mariota. It was recovered by Brian Burns. The Giants returned it for a bit. Then Dart on a 4th down pass just pretty much chucked up a prayer. It was like a corner route to Wan'Dale Robinson. Had a 17-yard touchdown. It was a good throw, like back foot, fadeaway type stuff you see from Jordan Love. He does that a lot. And Wan'Dale, to his credit, made a great catch. He was able to dive and not have the ball hit the ground. He controlled the ball the whole way. So Wan'Dale Robinson, once again, in a contract year, playing his best ball. He looks really good this year. That made it 29-21. Washington still in control, but then there's a fumble. There's the Jeremy McNichols fumble forced by Tyler Nubin and Abdul Carter. The Giants do 2 laterals on this return, which it didn't matter because when they first recovered the fumble, the guy who recovered it, which I think was Abdul Carter, was down anyway, so the return didn't matter. But the Giants did 2 laterals. It was pretty sick. It was a great return, but unfortunately that went for nothing. Then on the final drive, Antonio Hamilton had the big pass breakup on 3rd down. I believe that was underthrown by Jackson Dart. Then on 4th down, they had a deep crosser to Wan'Dale. Inaccurate pass, I would say, for the most part. Fell down incomplete, and that's how the game ends. So the Giants at least had a chance on that final drive to come down, get the touchdown, get the 2-point conversion, and make it interesting and possibly go to overtime. But unfortunately, that's not how it goes. I guess fortunately, because once again, I still want this 1st overall pick. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I really did think coming in that the Giants were going to win this game. I did bet the Giants to win this game today. It just felt like they would. But to Washington's credit, like, they're a team that also has nothing to play for. Like, they've come out recently and they've looked really good. I mean, not last week they got destroyed in Minnesota, but the week before that they went to OT with the Broncos, who are a legit team. So they're not laying down and dying, the Commanders, even with Jaden Daniels being out for most of these games. And another guy like Wan'Dale, who's going to make a lot of money, is probably Marcus Mariota. I know Mariota's like probably in his, I don't want to say mid-30s, maybe like 32, 33, like he's a bit up there in age. But Mariota is like one of the highest end backups in the league. And I will say, like, keep an eye on it. I'm not saying like it's going to happen, but if the Giants were to hire Cliff Kingsbury as their head coach and they have the money, I guess it's possible that they could bring in Marcus Mariota. But then, of course, you still have Jameis Winston under contract. So maybe it wouldn't happen. I'm kind of just like brainstorming here, but I guess it's a possibility that we could see Mariota follow Kingsbury if he goes on the coach somewhere else. So as we sit here with 3 games to go, once again, I'm not sure how you bring back Shane. It's just been too much losing. There has not been a good enough resume for him. The drafting has not been great. The free agency stuff, I think, has been a bit better, but still not that great. You look at Adebo this year, you look at Javon Holland this year, I haven't been too impressed, honestly. I don't want to make it sound like Shane's done the worst job in the world. I don't think he's as bad as Dave Gettleman, once again. I've said that before. But results-wise, they are pretty similar, right? I think Joe Shane, from a process standpoint, is better, but you look at the comparison between Gettleman and Joe Shane, they're pretty much the same guy, at least results-wise. I will say at least Shane had a playoff win, so you can't take that away from him. But a lot of that was with the Gettleman roster, so it's like you have to include both things. But I just think at this point you can do better for a GM, and obviously you can do better as a head coach. I mean, I never really took Kafka seriously. I believe I said that when he was first I guess, named the interim head coach. I wasn't really taking him seriously as a candidate. And so far, he's been bad as a head coach. I have to call it how I see it. So it's nothing against him. He's still, 37, 38 years old. He's a young guy, first-time head coach. But, you're thrown into the fire with a 2-8 football team and different personalities here and whatnot. So not the easiest job in the world, but I can't say I've been impressed by Mike Kafka either. Next week, home against Minnesota. They could win that game. I will say Minnesota's looking a bit better. I'm watching now. It's early third quarter against Dallas for them on Sunday night, and Dallas is only up by 3 points. I feel like the Vikings offense is at least looking watchable now, because I feel like a few weeks ago with McCarthy, it was really bad. So now McCarthy at least is gaining some confidence, and we'll see how he does in probably some less ideal conditions in MetLife next week. Then you close out at the Raiders, their final away game, and then the final game of the year in 2026. Wow. 2026 will be hosting the Cowboys in Week 18. And none of these games matter. So if it was up to me, I'd be like, yeah, let's just throw Russell Wilson out there and lose these games. But obviously, they do want to get Jackson Dart the reps. I don't blame them. The coaches and the players will try to win. Will they win? Probably not. If I had to guess, I still think the Giants lose next week. I think they'll win against the Raiders, which would suck, and then they lose against Dallas. So I think they close out the year 1-2, finish out the season 3-14, which is insane to say out loud. And I think coming into this year, because based on how last year went with them keeping both Shane and Dable and John Mara coming out and speaking to the media, I think a lot of us were like, yeah, they're going to keep these guys here for a couple more years unless things are really bad in 2025. And you look at it now and it's like, yeah, things are really bad in 2025. So one of them's already gone in Brian Dable, and now it's just Shane. And I think things have been bad enough here where you can easily make the argument that he should not be the general manager. And I think if they were able to win 6, 7, 8 games this year, I do think they probably both would have ended up staying. Maybe not Dable, but I think Shane would have at least bought himself another year. But now that you've only won 2 games and maybe 3, maybe 4 at most, it's like, how can you really feasibly bring him back at this point? It just does not make sense. And I don't believe in the whole if Shane stays, they're not going to have good head coaching candidates. I still think they're going to have good head coaching candidates. I think people want to coach the Giants, and this is a job that I think most people would want because of Jackson Dart and some of the young talent. The Giants obviously have picked very high in the draft the past few years, so they're good just based on how it goes. They're going to have very talented young players like Neighbors, like Carter, like Dart. So it's a fun young nucleus to build around, to steal the Giants' phrasing, but it's a young nucleus that has some talent. But you look at the rest of the roster, you look at the guys they picked up in free agency over the years, and they just have not looked great. I mean, you look at the Hollands, you look at the Adibos, you look at this point Okereke in his career, he's not looked that great lately. There's things to like about this job, and there's things to be like, yeah, that needs work. We need to be better in free agency, we need to draft better, because the Giants unfortunately have wasted a lot of draft picks, and I'm not one of those people that expects you to get every single draft pick right. I'm a realist. I understand you're going to get literally 60 to 70% of your draft picks wrong. But the problem for the Giants is they've whiffed on a lot of high picks. You can't take Josh Azudu in the top 167 overall. You can't take Deontay Banks and have him be this bad. John Michael Schmitz has looked better of late, but I can't say he's anything special either. Jalen Hyatt, 73rd overall. You traded up to get him. That has not been good. Tyler Nubin, really, in my opinion, has not been anything special. Drew Phillips at number 70 overall. I mean, I like him as a player, but you have to admit there are inconsistencies with him. Darius Alexander, who definitely played more today, I feel like. I mean, he's done some nice things, but overall not too much of a difference maker for the 65th overall pick. I know he's a rookie and we should be giving these guys more time, but keep in mind that Darius Alexander is already 25 years old. He's barely 25. He turned 25 11 days ago. But it's not like Darius Alexander is 21, 22 years old. This is a guy who's 25 and should be better probably than what he is. So we'll see how it goes, and 3 games left once again. I would think Minnesota beats the Giants next week. I mean, they're playing now, so I guess anything can happen. But just watching them, I feel like they're a better football team than the Giants right now. And they are very well coached by Kevin O'Connell, so they have that going for them. Anyway, that'll do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Of course, leave a like, subscribe, all that, and I'll talk to you guys next time.